Hello and welcome to the Mastering the Hustle interview series. I'm your host, Joel Calkins, and today I'm joined by Kendall Kunz, who is the founder and CEO of Forms on Fire. Kendall, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to kick us off with a brief background of who you are and what you do?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Joel. It's always fun to do these podcasts and hear what other people are doing, and I really appreciate you sharing, some of the other founders who you've interviewed to date and some of the publishing, and you're just new with the business, and so good luck to you. I mean, sounds like you're really hitting the ball out of the park already, and so I'm sure you're going to be very successful. But sure, yeah. I mean, my journey started probably when I was a kid in terms of entrepreneurial things. I was always looking as a kid, always trying to find a way to make a buck. And I think when I was 13 years old, I ride my bike into town and I'd sweep this parking lot, and I got a check for $70 a month for doing that like 8 times a month, which wasn't very much money, but that was a long time ago. And everything just sort of happened from there. When I was in college, I did some entrepreneurial things, and they were just ideas that I got as I was working with professors and working with students. And I ended up coming up with this idea of, there's all these extra reading materials that the professors give to their students. Why don't they package that all up into a little book and sell it? And so I went to the professors and I'm like, hey, why don't we put this into a little book and sell it? And I went in and I made the pitch to the first classroom that was there. There were like 250 students, and all of them came down, and I left with a wad of money, a wad of $5 bills in my pocket. I'm like, this couldn't be easier. And so things kind of all happened from there. I did graduate business school from Purdue, went out of business school. I joined a company called Oracle, joined a startup 4 years later in Seattle. And I think 7 years after that, we took it public on the NASDAQ. I became CEO of the company, and we merged it with another company. And I had the good fortune of some very early success in my career. As CEO of a publicly traded technology company. And I think we grew that to maybe 120 million in sales. And I've had 4 companies since then. And so just love what I do. I'm pretty sure Forms on Fire will be the last company that I start, although I may have said that on the last one. And but we're having a ball. I mean, we've been, incredibly blessed as a company. We have a great team. We have amazing clients, and our product, as it turns out, is really good. People love it. So we have a great product market fit.
That's amazing. And Kendall, you mentioned that you're with Forms on Fire right now, and you're building that out. For those of us who don't know what Forms on Fire does or how it's used, can you just give us a brief explanation of what that product is, or what are the products that you service with Forms on Fire?
Sure. Well, as the name implies, it includes forms, and specifically what we do is we help companies who are using forms internally for their employees: inspection forms, audit forms, quality forms, order forms, and we help them take that form, or they can do it themselves right on our website without coding. They can change that form into a mobile app that they can use on their iPad, their iPhone, Android. It works on Windows, and they can begin capturing data in the field. It all gets collected into our database in the cloud, and then they can connect that to anything that they want. They can have it automatically send a beautiful looking report that they design using our no-code design tools to their client. They can send data to Dropbox or Google Drive or into their database or Salesforce. We connect to over 6,000 systems, so they can bring data into those forms to inform the user, like if they want a drop down for their client list or whatever. And we have companies, that are on the Fortune 10 list that use it. And we have companies like as small as the guy who comes out and, services your furnace, and kind of everything in between. And so it's really for about any industry. And it's very, very easy to get started, very inexpensive to use. It's a subscription basis. All you can eat as many form templates as you want. You just pay one fee per user per month. So if you have 10 users in the company that are using it, or 10,000 users in the company, you pay a certain fee per month or per year. It's just a subscription business, and people love the application. Solves a lot of different business problems.
No, that's amazing. I was just talking to a business owner, a client of mine, in the last week, and he's trying to do more automation because he's running out of time, right? And he can't get done all the things that he needs to get done with his business, and then be able to have any sort of feedback loop to understand how well it's going. how did you decide that this was the problem that you wanted to get into and solve for with Forms on Fire?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, time savings is one of the reasons. I had a company called Bellevue Technology Partners. We were a project management consultancy here in Bellevue, Washington, and we were doing great. We were growing. We were making money. We had a lot of great clients, but I wasn't involved in any of the projects. And, it ended up being more like a staffing company. So I was kind of bored. I went and listened to Eric Ries speak. He wrote the book, The Lean Startup. And he's the one that kind of discovered this whole minimum viable product, or MVP. Everybody talks about it now.
Right.
And that really made sense to me. And I'm like, wow, we could start some experiments out of Bellevue Technology Partners. Social, mobile, and cloud computing were 3 areas. So we launched a few different experiments to try to find out what was happening in the marketplace. And we kind of came across this concept because we had lots of consultants out in the field, and they were submitting timesheets into the company. And then we'd have to reformat those. For one client, they would want to see their timesheets one way, and another client wanted to see theirs. And I'm like, there's got to be a different way, because we're doing this on Google Sheets and then we're repurposing it. There's all this time in the office. So what we did is we built a platform where literally your timesheets can all come in, and depending on which client it goes to, it can just get sent right out to them or go right to their Google Sheets or their database, and we can connect anything. And it's super simple to use, where you can set it up like that and have hundreds of different clients with hundreds of different, concepts on the data comes in one format and it gets reformatted and sent out the other. And then you don't need to have all this office staff reformulating, resending, distributing it, making sure that people get it and do your collections. And it all happens instantaneously, right? So you're not also waiting like a week. Let's talk about invoicing, right? If you get the timesheets in and then you're consolidating them, takes you, 3, 4, 5 days. You get the invoice out. All of a sudden, your day sales outstanding grows and grows. And then with this system, it all comes in, instantly goes out. There's no wait. You get the payment. You've shortened your life cycle. You can reduce the amount of cash that you have in the company. And so, as it turns out, when we launched the company, you don't know if the product's going to be loved, and people just absolutely love our product. And we're so grateful that our clients, they get the aha very quickly, and they're able to get, huge value out of it.
Oh, that's amazing. So Kendall, you've been successful in a number of different arenas throughout your career. What would you consider to be your most significant success so far, and what lessons did you learn from that?
Oh gosh. It's hard really to say this is my one most significant success, because there've been a few that I think I've learned different lessons from as well. And so, I mentioned the Lean Startup and Eric Ries and this minimum viable product. Well, I started a company called Kickplay in 2007, and I put, some money into the company, and as we were going through the design phase of the product, we kept adding more and more and more to the scope, and it got larger and larger. And then we finally released the product. We went out there, and the basic premise for what was going to make this game company fun ended up not being true.
Yeah.
And I think we could have tested that by spending about 1/10 the amount of money. So when I read Eric Ries's book and I heard him speak, I'm like, man, I wish I would have known this back in 2007, because that would have saved me some time. So there was a failure. The one major failure that we had, because we ended up shutting that company down, where I learned probably more than all the others with it. But my goodness, when we took Eris Corporation public in 1997, and I helped manage it as a public company, and then became CEO, and you're managing Wall Street and a lot of other things. That was a success, but I learned there, I don't ever want to be CEO of a publicly traded company. That's not the kind, that is a real drag on me. It doesn't give me energy. I know a lot of people, it does give them energy, and so on. So I think throughout each of the successes that I've had, and yeah, I would say, Forms on Fire has been a great success. We have no outside influence, no outside investors. It's 100% owned by employees through stock and stock options. And, our clients are able to fund our cash flow. And, I've learned that through having companies and starting them, that bootstrapping and making sure that they're successful so that you can focus on one thing, and that is to make your client happy. I think more than any other of the successes that I've had, Forms on Fire to a T really spells that out. And it's exemplified in everything that our employees do. So a lot of different lessons. I think you have to try to learn from your mistakes, try to learn from those successes, but learn about what it means for yourself, right? In your own heart, like not wanting to do a publicly traded company. I think those things are important.
Yeah, I think you touched on two things that are very critical. One is, test your ideas early and often so you don't make those costly mistakes. And I think the other one that you mentioned was knowing about yourself and knowing who you are and how you're built so that you know what kind of leader are you and what's the right fit for you in that role. And so those are really good, two really good takeaways. So you mentioned your employees a little bit. How has this experience with Forms on Fire and how you led and grown this company changed or impacted the way that you lead your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. With each of the companies that I've had, the growth and the people that we've added, I think I've really had the good fortune of, excellent people falling as a part of our team. And I don't know if that's my faith, and I'm always, like trying to look for people who have common values and tapping into that faith and, getting assistance on discerning which person is good and which person is not. But we have just an amazing track record of people. And I would say loyalty is something that, we kind of start out with, you have to have a great attitude and you have to have an excellent aptitude to learn. And if you have those two things and you show some humility and you show kind of a track record of execution excellence, that gets you in the door. What people, I think, when they get into Forms on Fire, and what I've discovered is loyalty is incredibly important. And, it's easy to bring young people up where they don't necessarily have a cultural experience. And then they get into this concept of loyalty and they really understand your processes and they stay on for a long time. What's hard to do is to hire experienced people who come from so many different backgrounds and be able to bring them in and put them into the right roles. And fortunately, we've been able to do that successfully, probably because I've been bringing in people that I've already known and trusted. So they're proven. I have a relationship with them. There's already this mutual respect. So we bring them in, we put them into a leadership role, we teach them up, and then we send them on their way. And, I think it's really hard for entrepreneurs when they get started to figure out, okay, what should I delegate? How do I delegate it? Nobody could possibly ever do my job or whatever. I think it's first and foremost, I think it's super important that an entrepreneur get an executive assistant. You got to have somebody that manage your email box and your calendar. If you're just overwhelmed with hundreds of emails like I am, you've got to have someone sort through that because there's just all kinds of vendors. Your email got slipped through, which was great. She thought I would like to take a look at that. She took a look at your LinkedIn profile, and that was great. But you got to have somebody kind of with some discernment to be able to do that. And I encourage people. You can even get an executive admin who is out of the country. It doesn't have to be that expensive, and they don't have to be full time. But I encourage entrepreneurs to do that. But the other thing I think that's really important in terms of as a founder is as you're going along and you're adding a team, you're building your team, you really need to do a time audit on where you're spending your time and then figure out a replacement ladder for everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. So I spent weeks literally every single task, writing it down, how much time to take. Then I went back and I said, is this a $10 an hour task, $50 an hour, $250 an hour, $1,000 an hour, whatever it is? And does this task give me energy or suck energy from me? Yeah. Maybe it's a $10 an hour task and it actually gives me energy. Maybe I should keep that if it's just a few minutes a week, right? Yeah. But for those that are really sucking energy from you, how can you delegate those to the right people? And how can you create roles where you say, this person's going to take that over and so on? I think the replacement ladder is something that entrepreneurs really forget, or they don't even really think about how they would do that to free up their time so that they can spend time on the things that give them energy and the things that are going to be really valuable for the company. So I think that was a long-winded answer, but we're so lucky on the team that we have. Yeah.
Well, it appears that you've built a really great culture, and you found the things that give you energy, and you probably instill that into your employees as well, and you find the things that make them tick and how they're built. and you allow them to use their God-given gifts to excel there too with Forms on Fire. So that's really great. Kendall, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this conversation. It's been so much fun talking to you. And I wish you the best in your growth with Forms on Fire.
Thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Thanks for having me.
Kendall.
Take
Bye.
care. Yep.
Bye.